Let's please have lots and lots of clapping and cheering, as here they are. It's the Royal Air Force Aerobatic Team. Please give it up for the Red Arrows!
Coming, left, down, holding the bank, now tight, left.
Wing Commander Martin Higgins, Officer Commanding the Royal Air Force Aerobatic Team, the Red Arrows, welcoming Kim from Eagle Radio to the Royal Air Force Aerobatic Team.
During the summer display season of 2015, I was fortunate enough to be invited to spend the day with the Royal Air Force Aerobatic Team, the Red Arrows. Acknowledged as one of the world's premier aerobatic teams, the Red Arrows are performing more than 80 shows across the United Kingdom and overseas in 2015. Since flying for the first time in 1965, the Red Arrows have performed more than 4,660 times across the globe. They're lucky to have both a wonderful history and the support and interest of millions of well-wishers. I spoke to two members of the team to find out what it takes to be a Red Arrows pilot.
Flight Lieutenant Mike Bowden, Red 2, the 2015 display team.
Flight Lieutenant Emmett Cox, Red 3, the 2015 display team.
Mike, you're a local boy here to Lincoln, right?
I was born in Lincoln, so I spent a couple of years here. I can't really remember it. Moved on, followed my dad around the forces and grew up in South Wales. But Lincoln was where I was born, and it's nice to be back.
But you've come a lot further, yeah?
Yeah, a little bit further. I'm from New Zealand originally, so yeah, a little bit further than here. But you probably tell from my accent a little bit, so a bit hard to understand sometimes, that's all.
Do they take the mickey out of you?
Constantly.
I thought they might, yeah. So both first-year pilots, talk to us a little bit about where you've come from before joining the Red Arrows.
Okay, I instructed a little bit on the Hawk, this aircraft, before students after my training. I went on through the Harrier GR9 for a short while until it was sadly removed from service, and then went and did 3 years on the Tornado GR4, a couple of stints out in Afghanistan, and was lucky enough to then be successful in joining the team at the end of that tour. So, really pleased to be here. It's been a childhood dream and loving every minute of it so far.
And yourself, Emmett?
So I went to the usual training and then went to the Tornado GR4 based on 617 Squadron up at Lossiemouth, which was a fantastic experience. And then I taught also on the Tucano, taught other instructors how to teach people in Yorkshire, which was a brilliant experience. And then down here, so quite a mixed bag. And fantastic flying here to be had, that's for sure.
So how do you go about saying, you know what, I want to be a pilot for the Red Arrows?
We're kind of reminded that ultimately we're all volunteers, and there's a process that goes out, a signal that's sent out to everyone in the Air Force with some requirements that you need to meet. So you need to have 1,500 basically flying hours. You need to have been assessed as above average, and you then get to go and basically put your name in the hat. It comes to the team. They will then decide with all the people that have applied, get it down to a short list of guys that are that they think fit the bill. Basically, if Carlsberg then did interviews, you go and spend a week with the team out on their Spring Hawk exercise. And from that, the team will then basically decide whether it's 2 or 3 people that are needed, having done flying tests, interviews, and spending a lot of time with the team, the guys that you want to join the team. So that's the process of actually, applying, joining, and hopefully fitting the bill. And we were lucky enough last year to be here in our first year, and we've just gone through that process and selected next year's team pilots. So it's an exciting process.
I imagine that Spring Hawk training is really exciting but also really nerve-wracking at the same time.
Yeah, it can be quite stressful, I suppose. Do quite a bit of training back in the UK initially to get the fundamentals sorted, but then it's really putting the polish on the display and sort of ironing out those really, really small areas, which I suppose to anyone else probably doesn't look like anything, but as you get more and more into it, you're really trying to aim for perfection, although don't often get it, but always striving for it.
And what's the moment like when you're told you're in?
Yeah, it's pretty surreal. I can still remember it quite clearly now. I think it was a small wind-up that I didn't massively appreciate at the start of. I think I was the last to get told. I think the first words that came out of the Commandant's mouth were something on the lines of, everyone that's been successful has already found out, other than you. And so it was kind of quite a surreal feeling to actually get the good news, and there was lots of celebrating to be had, so it was absolutely amazing.
Do you have to remain quite calm at the point, like just stay cool and or did you just freak out? I
suppose of both. It was utterly surreal because you never think it's going to be you, and I suppose you leave that week of going through the selection process with absolutely no idea, because you're with 9 really talented guys and people that you get on really well with, and you know some of them really well. So it's it's just an amazing experience. It's something that I've always wanted, and to get it, it was phenomenal.
So we know a bit about how to get into the Red Arrows as a pilot, But what do you fly? For more than half a century, the best of British has been on show every time the RAF's Red Arrows take to the skies in their BAE Systems Hawk. The aircraft are ideally suited for the demands of the world's most famous aerobatic display team and the more than 20,000 pilots it's trained for the front line. The T1 is the Hawk flown by the Reds. So I took to the hangar to find out a bit more about it.
Hi, my name's Sergeant Steve Forrest and I'm a Mechanical Senior NCO on the Red Arrows. My job at the moment on the trade desk, I would liken it to a service advisor in a car workshop. So I run the mechanical desk. So I task the boys with whatever jobs are required on the aircraft, analyse the snags as they come in from the pilots and take the appropriate action.
So can you tell me about the aircraft?
Right, it's powered by a Rolls-Royce Adore. It's got 5,200 pounds of thrust. It's quite an elderly aircraft now. It joined Red Arrow service in 1980, so it's quite a classic aircraft. Very agile, very basic, so it's nice and easy to work on. Ideal for what we need, really.
I know some of the pilots have flown aircraft before that have got lots of gadgets inside them, and these, as you mentioned, are quite basic. Is it very different to fly?
I think the basic principles of flying are the same. Very rewarding to fly. It's like driving a go-kart, so very, very agile. Less to worry about, more about the pure flying.
So we've got one behind us that's currently here for a bit of servicing. Well, you said a bit of servicing, but it looks like it's in bits.
Yeah, it's on a minor servicing. Aircraft go through a number of servicings during their life, depending on hours. Certain components are replaced after a certain amount of hours just to maintain air safety.
So during my day at RAF Scampton with the Royal Air Force aerobatic team, the Red Arrows, I got the opportunity to sit in on a pilot's briefing before a full display for training. The briefing is led by Team Leader, Squadron Leader David Montenegro. His responsibility is primarily for all aspects of the display, from running the training programme and creating the routines to leading the team on the ground and in the air. The pilots are called to the team briefing by the sounding of a single bell. Once in the room, all sat in their individual red chairs in their number order, the briefing gets underway.
Just be rolling out, letting it out. That's all. So slightly, because I have a downward vector, roll out, let out.
So we've had the briefing. Now let's get out onto the pad and put the jets in the air. There have been 153 Red Arrows pilots during the team's history. The length of the display is 21 minutes. Reds 1 to 5 form the front section of the team's formation, known as Enid, and Reds 6 to 9 make up the rear part, called Jippo. The first half of the Red Arrows display consists of synchronised formation aerobatics, followed by a more dynamic second half. The synchro pair, Red 6 and 7, perform the highly popular opposition manoeuvres during this latter section of the show. During the display, Red 10 acts as the team's supervisor, who maintains two-way radio contact with the team leader. There are three types of display the team leader can elect to fly: full, rolling or flat. To carry out a full looping display, the base of the cloud must be above 5,500 feet to avoid the aircraft entering the cloud at the top of the loop. If the cloud base is less than 5,500 feet but more than 2,500 feet, the team will perform the rolling display, substituting wingovers and rolls for the loops. And when the cloud base is below 2,500 feet, the team will fly the flat display, consisting of a series of flypasts and steep turns.
So it's pretty incredible. Just the flying we do is something really special. You don't really get a chance to do the type of flying we do anywhere else. So that's really what I love, and also the contact with people outside the military as well, and all that. So going to places like Dunsfold and seeing the public is a fantastic experience. You don't really get as much of on the front line doing other jets.
So we're getting ready for a display at Dunsfold then, which is this coming weekend. What happens in the day? So what happens from the moment you wake up in the morning right up to the display?
We all look up at the skies and firstly pray for good weather, because obviously I'm sure everyone else at home coming out to watch the show this weekend will be hoping exactly the same. Ultimately we get into that initially. So the weather, thinking about getting obviously to the airfield, getting our day sort of set up as we do for every air show. And we've all got our individual responsibilities that we need to take care of. So someone being responsible of actually navigating the route that we're going to fly to get to the display and organising and that aspect of it. Someone else might be sorting out the weathers, which is Emmett's job here. I'll be sorting out the aircraft allocations. So everyone's got their individual roles and responsibilities, such that we all come together and can, basically meet that timeline and be there to hopefully give a fantastic display to the crowds, and everything's achieved.
Dunsfold's the home of the Hawk, so that must be a little bit special as well.
Each display is very special in its own right, and each provide their own challenges. So Dunsfold's no different to that. Yeah, so that's really looking forward to it.
You've got 3 different displays that you can do, haven't you?
Yeah, we've got, depending on the weather, we can fly a flat, a rolling or a full display. Again, that have been practiced throughout our winter season, and it's basically to cater for either the cloud base or the visibility. And obviously, knowing our UK summer as it is, we tend to vary between the 3. So they're all great shows, and we always want to go full to give the best that we can, but they are all fantastic, and hopefully we'll get to do one of them this weekend, so they're looking forward to it.
Have you got a favourite manoeuvre?
I quite enjoy the rollbacks. It's definitely quite a dynamic manoeuvre, and the most dynamic that the first year pilots will get a chance to do, and it's usually the last thing you learn going through winter training, once you get it, it's a really, really satisfying manoeuvre to fly.
And once you're done, you've displayed, what happens then?
Hopefully we'll get to come and meet the public, meet the guys on the ground, spend a bit of time, because ultimately we're in quite a lonely environment in our cockpit, and then with the same sort of 9 guys that we work with day in, day out, so it's really nice to then, after a show, if we had and we've got the time, to go and interact, meet some of them, and and just get a bit of feedback as to what they thought of the show, and it's been really great so far, and hopefully we'll get to do more of that as the season goes on.
We know the team consists of 10 pilots, Red 1 through 9, who take part in the display, and Red 10, the supervisor, squadron leader Mike Ling. Red 10 is responsible for the display commentary. He flies the spare jet between venues and flies the team's photographers. But what exactly does a pilot wear when experiencing the G-force of a Hawk T1 in the air?
Hi, Corporal Paul Redwood, survival equipment fitter, or survival equipment specialist as it's been renamed to. I look after all the equipment that the pilot wears, from their helmet right through to their G-trousers, their life support jacket, and their clothing, essentially. First off, they've got their helmet, which is there for protection. Not only does it protect them, but it's there for them to hang their communications device and their oxygen equipment from. From there, we go down to their basic layer of clothing. They have some cotton long johns and a cotton t-shirt. From that, they then have a Nomex flying suit for fire protection. On top of that, they'll have a set of anti-G trousers and a life support jacket.
How does it all work?
Right, the actual jacket is a manually operated jacket or automatic should they land into water. So that's there it's a life support jacket, so it will actually roll them over in the water, keep the head out of water, keep them alive. The G-trousers are function from the aircraft, so as the aircraft pulls more G, so the G-trousers inflate. That's there to give them a higher G tolerance. So it's not a case of the more you do it, the more tolerant you get. You do essentially, but from that, the more G the aircraft pulls, the harder they inflate. And what that does is it stops the blood moving around the body. So it keeps you awake, basically, so you don't pass out.
So it does that automatically?
It will do with the aircraft. As the aircraft flies, so as they go through the display, depending on what type of manoeuvre they do, the more dynamic the manoeuvre, the more G the aircraft will pull. So the harder the actual G-trousers will inflate.
So what does that feel like?
It feels like a boa constrictor across your legs, essentially. It will tighten up across your legs, and when the G comes off, as you fly flat and level again, it will release the air out of the G-trousers and relax. You can relax again.
And is everything fitted individually to each pilot?
Yes, everything's individually fitted. So every pilot comes through and the brand new kit will then get issued to them and fully fitted.
There are more than 120 people in the Royal Air Force aerobatic team. This includes the Red Arrow support team, who are known as the Blues because of their distinctive display coveralls. They represent the many varied roles in the service and demonstrate the teamwork required on the ground to ensure the jets can display safely in the air. Responsible for replenishing the pods are 2 dedicated dive teams. Due to the diverse range of locations the Red Arrows operate from, these engineers travel thousands of miles a year by road. Wherever the aircraft land, there's a dive team waiting. Working to tight timescales, they ensure the red, white and blue trails look the part when Red 1 calls. Dive Team 2 will be responsible for the display at Dunsfold Wings and Wheels this year. And from that team, I caught up with SA Tech Sam Williams.
It's a volunteers post, so I basically, you just put your head down, work hard, and hopefully the management will give you a chance to get on the team.
So Dye Team, it kind of speaks for itself in a sense. That's the red, white and blue, yeah?
It is, yes. It's a mix of diesel and dye making the colours in the sky. The white is just pure diesel. When it goes into the exhaust of the aircraft, it vaporises into the colours that you see.
So how long does it take to get the dye into the jet?
When the jets land, we've probably got best part of about an hour and a half to actually do all the jets, depending on how many actually fly in the sky. You'd probably narrow it down to about 15 minutes per jet.
And how long do they have to fly with the coloured smoke?
You get the total pod carries 70 gallons worth of fluid. That's split between 50 gallons of the white, 10 gallons of the blue and 10 gallons of the red. That gives 5 minutes worth of white trails, 1 minute of blue trail and 1 minute of red trail.
So it's not an awful long time then, is it?
It's not an awful long time, and obviously Red One has to calculate it into his display pattern as to exactly how much time he's got with each colour. So when he, creates new moves and changes the display about, he's obviously got to work all that into his calculations so the display looks as good as the year before.
So if he goes over and runs out, you get angry with him?
I think it's the other way around. If they run out, they get very angry with us. But no, it's got a very prominent safety aspect as well. With the winds, the pilots use it a lot to show the other pilots which way the winds blow in upon landing. So it's got, as well as making the display look real good, it's actually got quite an important safety aspect as well.
Each of the Red Arrows aircraft is looked after by its own designated engineer for the whole display season. These Royal Air Force engineers are specially selected from the squadron on an annual basis to accompany the team's pilots. They fly on transit, but not in displays, and ensure the aircraft are serviced efficiently at each location when operating away from the Red Arrows home of RAF Scampton. As the pilots are known as Red 1 through 10, these engineers are known as Circus 1 to 10, denoting which pilot they fly with for the season.
My name is Flight Lieutenant Marcus Ramsden, and I'm the Junior Engineering Officer at the Red Arrows.
And more affectionately known as Circus 1, right?
Yes, I'm... During the display season, one of my additional duties is Circus 1. I'm privileged enough to go and fly in the back of the aircraft and go to each air show with Red 1.
So what is your job role?
My job role is I look after all the day-to-day responsibilities of all the engineering aspects, looking after up to 80 individuals and ultimately all the 12 aircraft that we have here at the Red Arrows.
And who are Circus?
Circus are 10 engineers that are chosen each year. Out of the engineering tradesmen, we have armament engineers, electrical engineers and mechanical engineers, and they're all assessed at the end of the display season, and judging on their performance, then they're selected to be Circus and then associated with the pilots. So I'm associated with Red 1, Circus 2, Red 2, etc., etc.
And you always stay with that same pilot right through the season?
Yes, we stay with the same pilot throughout the season. That's just to build a bit of rapport, but we can swap if there is any issues that we need to overcome, and we can adapt to the given situation.
So you mentioned earlier you get the privilege of flying with the pilots. When do you take on that role?
We take on the role of Circus at the end of the display season in September, and that's when the engineers take the opportunity, what's known as winterline, to get the jets ready for the following display season. The pilots then build up the flying display, starting at 2 aircraft all the way up to 9 aircraft in around about February time. And then we go away and consolidate the training for the engineers and also for the pilots. We went to Greece this year. And that's when Circus really start to mould and gel together as a team. And then come back May to September, display seasons, doing 83 display seasons this year. Away every weekend, working with the pilots to make sure we can always put 9 aircraft up for the displays and for the public.
And is it you guys that stand at the front of the jets and do the hand signals as they get ready for their display?
It is, yes. Circus has stood at the front. Something that we pride ourselves on, and we put a lot of time and effort to make sure it looks as best as we can do, the same amount of practice and honour that the pilots have when they go up in the air and display. We want to do the same on the ground from Circus.
The Royal Air Force aerobatic team, the Red Arrows, represent the best of British. The team aims to showcase the Royal Air Force, to promote and support UK industry, to be national ambassadors and to aid recruitment to the armed forces. Throughout the summer season, they'll put on an average of 85 displays. You can see them performing at Dunsfold Wings and Wheels on Saturday, August the 29th.
The white smoke comes on.
Lights on, go.
Then the colour. Here's your cue, ladies and gentlemen. The Royal Air Force Aerobatic Team, the Red Arrows.